Shepard here with another installment of How to Think, Reasoning, Logic, etc. There was recently, I'm videotaping this because that's what people my age call it when you have a camera pointed at you. Um, I got that one wrong. Uh, I watched something this morning in which a person said something that people didn't like, and then that person was violently attacked. This is September 2025, and the big news this week is that YouTuber and anti postmodernist Charles Kirk was assassinated in Utah a few days ago. And someone posted a video on Instagram that a friend sent to me. So I watched it, and it shows a guy in a crowd of people saying, "Was bad Charlie Kirk." He used a different word than bad, but bad Charlie Kirk. And then the crowd attacked him and beat him up. And let's examine this using our reason and our logic. And this video is not about Charlie Kirk. And that's part of reasoning, is realizing the nuance of this video isn't about Charlie Kirk. This is about how we think about things. So where did this crowd go wrong? Well, first of all, by being violent. But let's take it up to the point that everybody did, or a bunch of people decided to jump on it, on the guy who made bad mouth sounds. Why is Charlie Kirk known? Why do we know his name? And you don't know other people's names. Well, he's a public figure. He's a YouTuber. He spoke out against postmodernism. He was a monotheist. He was a pro-government, but I think he liked smaller government. He wanted it to be his size. I guess so does Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton and George Bush and Donald Trump. Everybody wants government to be their size, but he was pro-government. He thought a government was necessary and a positive thing. And he would go to college campuses and initiate conversations that he knew would spark controversy. And from what I remember in my screenwriting class 20 years ago now, 25 years ago, that's one of the big things that sells in entertainment is conflict. You want to build conflict into things. And so a lot of entertainment has that conflict put into it so that it will sell well. And one way to do that, so that you can get a lot of views or sales, is to go to college campuses. And college campuses, I think we all recognize that 99% of them are 99% very left-leaning, pro-government, just postmodern. Some people call it liberal. I don't know if people are liberating, or I don't know, but I think you know what I mean here. So let's just assume that we're all on the same page, that colleges aren't where you go to learn the Chicago School of Economics or Austrian School of Economics or reason or logic or those kinds of things. There are philosophy classes, but by and large, most college students, most professors, etc., it's not a place where people think about liberty or conservatism or that kind of thing. It's a very left-leaning place. So Charlie would go to these places and have very controversial conversations, conflict, and he was never violent. He would never get up in somebody's face and shove them. He would simply talk, and he would say things that the professors and the students didn't like. And when I'm making a generalization, some students, some professors, obviously a very small percentage, did like what he would say. But overall, he would say things that people didn't like. And so after years of doing this, a lot of people hated him because of his conclusions. I don't know that they hated him because of his reasoning or his thinking, the actual mechanics of it, but they hated his conclusions and that he said them out loud. And so someone assassinated him. Maybe they assassinated him because they didn't like his hair color, or they have something against people who look like they have cleft palates or whatever. I don't know why they killed him, but the assumption is, and I think it's a pretty reasonable one, is that the assumption is that I have and most people have is that he was murdered because of what he believed and spoke about, and not because of something he actually physically did. So that's some of the backstory about who Charlie Kirk is and what happened. So let's look at this from a logic and reason standpoint. And we could assume several things from several directions. We could assume that you agree with what Charlie Kirk said, by and large. You agree with him 95%. You're a conservative, rightist, and you agree with him for the most part. Or let's say that you're on the opposite side of that fake two-sided thing of the left and the right. Let's say that you are more of a lefty and you think that he was wrong about 95% of what he said. Now, obviously, there's some things that he said that you agree with, but by and large, let's say you disagree. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter when we are looking at how we think and how we make decisions. So, this mob, The Madness of Crowds, came to mind just then. That's a book from, I think, over 100 years ago. Worth the read, talking a bit about what happened in Idaho. So, what were these people thinking? How did this madness begin? Well, somebody said something that someone else disagreed with. It hurt their feelings. It enraged them. Fighting words, one might say, likely to instigate, one might say. What are the reasons that you're not allowed to have free speech in the United States? That it's I think the guy they have as their president, the voters, Donald Trump, recently made a rule or tried to make a rule saying that people did not have free speech in terms of burning the government's symbol, the flag, which, by the way, the government has done a great job in its marketing campaign, making people think that that symbol doesn't mean the U.S. government; it means something else. But anyway, that's beside the point. So the people, the guy said some fighting words. He said, "F Charlie Kirk," and then the mob decided to fight, or in other words, mob him, and they beat him up. Where was the reasoning wrong here? Well, why is this so? And it is the right word, ironic. Well, I think the reason that this is so ironic and so ridiculous is Charlie Kirk. The one guy hated him, and the other guy, the other group, the other guys loved him because he made mouth sounds. He said things that you either liked or hated or agreed with or disagreed with or didn't care about, but whatever. That's what Charlie Kirk did to be loved and hated and to make a living and to perhaps share his passion and help the world be a better place. He made mouth sounds, made sounds with his mouth. That's all he did, as far as I know. Now, maybe he donated money to various things as well, but essentially, he made mouth sounds. That's why he was loved and hated. Why was the guy beat up in Idaho? For making mouth sounds. Now, if that isn't irony, I think that's the right word. If that isn't irony or coincidental or just weird, I think that is the pure definition of irony, or the perfect example is this crowd. They initiated violence against somebody because somebody said some mouth sounds about a guy who they loved because he said stuff. He made mouth sounds. Is that ridiculous? Now, I don't agree with shooting people with whom I don't agree with, who are just making mouth sounds. I don't think that's a good idea. But I also don't think it's a good idea to shoot or punch or otherwise initiate violence against somebody who is making mouth sounds against what I believe in. It's ridiculous. It is just ridiculous. That is what we call lousy thinking. Now, maybe the conclusion of this mad crowd, their conclusion was, hey, a guy who we really like was just assassinated, and this other guy is making light of it or being rude about it. And yeah, I completely agree with that conclusion. Yep, he was being rude, he's being mean, he was he was Kirking them. He was Charlie Kirking them. He was saying things that he knew they wouldn't agree with in order to get a response. And he got a response, but the response was not a moral one or one that was well thought out um, from a rational standpoint. So that is a kind of a long way of me saying, don't make that mistake yourself. If I'm making that mistake, call me out and say, "Hey, brother, you're messing up on this one. You're kind of doing that thing where you completely agree with the reasoning of it, but you're messing up. You're being irrational here. Tell me if I'm messing up." And yeah, I'm not going to tell you because you probably don't care. But if you do care and you ever